First and Second Kings. Don't miss it. If you're already not in a weekly Bible study, looky there. We made one for you. If you are in a Bible study, looky there. We made you another one. We don't really need it. You did walk right into that one. Can't help you. You know what I forgot to do? Fix the air conditioners. I know who you are. It's not about that. It's just pointing. Jerry's ready to take you chitlins to kids' church. So anybody that wants to go with Miss Jerry, if you identify as a child, I have no idea. Whew. Whew. Holy cow, it's off. It's not even on. Oh. Yeah, it's almost cool outside. Who's back there? Okay, it's dark. I have no idea who's sitting back there. You. Yeah, would you check that little thing right there? Go down. Go down. 64 would be awesome. Yeah, I was having a flash. Success? I knew it was hotter. Go to 72. A lot of men. Yeah. Hey, we need thermostat training on this side of the room. Yeah, well, that one wasn't even on. We've already established blame. Can we not bring it up again? Three men are now trying to turn down the air conditioner. To be fair, they are sharing the brain. You got it? Now we're just going to wait. I'm excited. It's January. Y'all got older. A little prettier. Everybody's sort of back. Go pee. She's not mad. Oh, yeah. We have that rule. Don't forget that in case you forgot. If you ever get up in the middle of the service, you have to tell me you're not mad. Because if you don't, then I'm going to stop you and go, why are you mad? Because I want to know right then. Make fun of you the next week. But we're coming out of Christmas. I had a good season in Christmas. Do you have a good season in Christmas? And yeah, New Year's has rolled in, and it's awesome. And here we are at the beginning of the year. And I've told you many times I don't do New Year's resolutions and all that stuff. So maybe talk a little bit about it. Some of you could call a resolution. She got cold? Okay, whatever. But first, I don't know if any of you opened any presents this year and then said these words, oh, you shouldn't have. Like, because you really mean, oh, you shouldn't have. Right? Did anybody? Go ahead and say it. Okay, the person next to you is not going to know it's the one you gave them. Like if some bonehead man gave your wife a toaster or a blender, and she said the words, oh, you shouldn't have. That was not a compliment. You shouldn't have. Because now she ain't. So there you go. But you ask that, and you look at that box, and you look in there, and you're like, you become one of two people. The returners or the hold-on tours. Well, gifters they're a new part of subculture, yeah. And you're hold on to her though. But you decide you're going to return it, but then anybody had this conundrum? Oh man, if I return it, they're going to be mad. It's going to hurt their feelings. Or you put it in a closet, and then when they come over, I literally heard that this season. I'm going to keep this in case they come over. Bring it out. I'm going to put it on, take a picture. Right? Anybody do that? Okay, don't admit that. Take a picture on Facebook, and thanks for my new sweater. Right? Back in the closet. Hold on to her. Because you people love Jesus because it's all about people, and you want to hold on to the stuff that people give you. But you looked in that box, though, and you said, I wish there was something different in this box. That's pretty much the core of it. It's kind of, when I was growing up, there was one type of box you never ever wanted to get, but you always got by some well-meaning adult above you. It's the ones that when they rattled, they didn't rattle, they sloshed. Because that shirt is just going from one side of the box to the other. Right? And so I'll open that in a minute. We had to pretend to be excited. Because as a kid, sorry, you don't get to choose to return it. You get what you get, and you don't get to throw a fit. That's pretty much it. So you looked in that box and you thought, hey, I could get something new. But what if when you looked in the mirror, you had those same thoughts? I wish there was something different inside. I wish I was different. I wish I saw something looking back at me that's not what I'm seeing right now. What happens when that actually happens? When you see something inside of you that you just don't like, or you wish wasn't there. I wish I got something that was different. I wish I had what he had or she had. Wish I would received something different. Wish I was more successful at work. I wish I knew more Bible. I wish I did. And you have this I wish moment. And we usually have them right now, this time of year. That's normal. And that's where the resolutions come from. But we also know a bunch of people made resolutions in the past, what are we at now, 15 days, in the past 15 days, 16 days? And we also know that in the next 30, only 25% will make it the 30 days, the first 30 days. Statistics show us that 8% of people who make some sort of resolution actually finish the goal. Yuck. Because I don't know if you know this, but working in the Baptist church for so long, change is hard. And we don't like it. So when you look in the mirror and you see something, I wish, I think I'll change, that change is very, very hard. And I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm saying maybe we need to address how. Maybe we need to look at what's not necessarily missing. Sometimes we need to look at what we got, and we've spent a few weeks talking about that, what is actually in there, and not so much as what's missing. But when you see a gap in your life, when you see something, and then you decide that you're going to sort of get into it, how are you going to do it? So I want to look at two guys' lives today. See some similarities in it between them two, but then also between us. And if I had a goal, so here's my goal. We talked about bucket lists a few weeks ago and all that stuff, but how about just a goal? If I had a goal as pastor, it would be that you, each single one who ever listens to a podcast of ours, a broadcast, sits in one of our seats, comes to a Bible study, every single person, you would identify in 2020 your calling. It would be defined in your life. You would accept it, and you would work it. And I know, right now, many of you, in the 60 and older crowd, there's a few of you, immediately you think, because I've already tried this out, immediately you think, my calling's to just enjoy the last days I've got. Kind of morbid, but hey. No, I've sort of lived that, man. I'm just sort of kind of trying to relax. I'm not talking about volunteerism at the church, so stop that. Although, don't forget it. But more, what literally? If you've been living it, that's awesome. You identified it. Cool. It probably didn't change. What I do know, I believe this. God calling on your life usually doesn't ebb and flow. His calling, and I'll show you why in just a minute. But maybe you haven't actually done it, and you could be that age. You might have had the perfect job. You might have had the career. You might have invested all you could. You might have done all the stuff that you think is actually what life got you there, and you gave credit to God. Praise God, you did that. I'm not. But if you got really, really honest, though, you would say, but really, I think I'm called to, and you would finish the sentence. If you got really, really honest. And that's what I hope you'll do, is that you'll get honest. Because I know this too. If you and I do the callings that are on our life, if we do that, your world changes. Both around yourself, the things that you experience, the joys that you need, and all that changes, but also our culture changes. And culture becomes better. Our planet becomes better only because more people are learning what it means to follow God. And that's the only solution there is to our planet, to our country, to our state, to our local, whatever, is people like you living out their calling. And you remember, we did talk just a little bit about calling about 7 weeks ago. If you weren't here, you can go back. And identifying that, but to really dig, but to really live it out. Let's look first. The two guys we're going to talk about, the first one is Saul. Saul was the first king of Israel. His story begins 1 Samuel chapter 9. Second's David. He was the second king of Israel. And what you're going to see when we start telling the stories is that the similarities, there's at least three, but there's quite a few more, that as we tell them both, you'll see. So first we're introduced to Saul, and here's what's happening. Saul's family had lost his donkeys. You ever lost your donkey? I know, all you investors. No, but I lost my... okay. That's a slow one. Mics aren't working really good today. It'll get there. Right? So they've lost their donkeys, and they're out, him and some of the people are out there looking for their lost donkeys, and they're not been very successful in finding them. And Saul has this idea, hey, there's a prophet of God who lives near here. I'm going to ask him if he knows where my donkeys are. So he goes to the prophet Samuel's house, knocks on the door, and then here's what Samuel says. Samuel comes out and he says, and this is chapter 10, verse 1. Samuel the prophet says, Samuel took a flask of olive oil and poured it over Saul's head. He kissed Saul and said, I'm doing this because the Lord has appointed you to be the ruler over Israel, his special possession. So Saul shows up looking for donkeys, and Samuel says, God wants to give you the keys to the kingdom. You can identify, probably a little bit. You're out doing what you think you should be doing, and along comes God with a different plan. Along comes God with a revelation or with something or an opportunity or whatever and says, this is you. And think about that as you read that story. Now, David shows up. So Saul's going to be the first king ever over Israel. So David shows up 6 chapters later in 1 Samuel. And his story starts not looking for donkeys, but he is out tending to his family's flocks, the sheep and the goats and things like that, because he's a shepherd. This Samuel, who's the very same prophet that anointed Saul, is now looking for the second king of Israel. And what he does is that he goes to David's house, because that's where God told him to go. God said, go to David's house, or go to the house of David, and we'll show you who's going to be the next king. So Saul goes there, he shows up, and he approaches the dad, and he's like, hey, I need to see all the men of your house. So they parade them through one by one, and nothing happening. Samuel's like, you got everybody? He's like, nah, there's a guy over here, and you bring them in, and he's like, nah, somebody else? Is there anybody else? And the brothers go, yeah, I mean, our youngest brother, but he's out shepherding. Samuel says, go get him. They bring him in. Right then. What's that? I think that's chapter 16, verse 13. So David stood there among his brothers, and Samuel took the flask of olive oil. Something similar here. And brought and anointed David with the oil. The Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon David from that day on. And Samuel returned to Ramah. So Samuel comes and anoints Saul, and then he comes along and he anoints David. And these two with their similar lives, and the way that God comes upon them is similar. And I want to show you that only because as God comes upon you or shows you things in your life, it's very similar in the way he does it among everybody. It's really not a secret. I hate it when Christians tell me, well, I just can't figure it out. Okay, you're just telling me you should have rode a shorter bus. Because you're just being slow. That's all you're being. Because it's there. The answer's there, right? Or maybe you should have went to deaf school. I don't know. Because you're just not hearing it. But it's not God's fault. God reacted. God did his job. We didn't do ours. I spent many of my life years not doing what we knew God wanted me to do, right? So you and I have probably had some similarities as well in that. So we see these stories, and we're introduced to these two, and these truths start to stand out in our lives, and they're true of both of them. And here's the first truth that we really need to check on. They're both called to it. They're called to it. Samuel was told, go and call Saul to be the first king. He was told, go to the house of David and call David to be the second king. Go and call them. Tell them. Show them. Whatever words you need to use. And I know we've been taught about callings all of our religious growing up, but whatever that looks like, they were called to it. And that has to be paramount in your life. If you grew up and you just became, I always say plumber because I like plumbing. I like electricity too, but anyway, let's say electrician today. Let's say you grew up and you were just a really good electrician. But you just did it because maybe you got paid the most or whatever. It just interested you. It was just something inside of you. Right? You don't know why. You just kind of went there. And then later on in life, you look back and you're like, yeah, I really don't know why I chose that. It just sort of happened. That can go a couple of different ways. And this is what causes the confusion. If you truly believe that God gifted you with those things to become that, and he called that to you, then you claim that as your calling it, and you know it. There's no ambiguity. God doesn't call you, and then you go, no. And actually have some sort of doubt. There's no doubt in God's accounting purposes. Where he's called you, you're called to it. It has to be defined, underlined, exclamation point. I'm called to it. Period. End of story. I liken it. I don't think moms are called to be moms, but I liken it to the scenario. You are a mom at a certain point. And there's not 100%, and I'm not a mom, so I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that you don't spend 100% of those next 18 years in utter joy that you are a mom. Is that fair? Okay. Maybe 98, I don't know. But it's probably not 100. But the fact that you were, for now we'll say the word called to be that mom, the details of it doesn't change. So it's kind of like that. But the call part is solid. It's there. It's underlined. It's defined. It never goes away. I'm called to do this no matter what. I'm called. These two were called to it. I'm trying to get you to hear the words called to it. They were called to it. And that's pretty cool. And we see it. They were also gifted for it. They were called to it. They were gifted for it. Guaranteed. If God calls you, He gifts you for the things you need to do. That's where it kind of gets crazy, because if you're just looking back at your life, you're like, I don't even know why I did electricity. I just seem to be pretty good at it, right? I didn't even have to learn it, right? I didn't have to. It was like almost natural. I was going to use a sporting analogy for this, but I don't really like sports. I like the big stuff. I like the Super Bowl. I like the title fights. I just like the ending. Right? I don't like to watch this stuff. So I didn't want to use that. But you know how there are certain people who are gifted, right? I mean, when I was growing up, I wanted to be a basketball player. Oh well. Right? And then probably growing up, somebody, I know who it was, I'm just not going to embarrass them, looked at me and was like, we're all made for things. You and basketball are just not the same. We're all gifted for something, but you're not for basketball. There are certain things about you that just don't line up. And that's true. That's true. But I could have worked, right? I could have just practiced really hard, and I could have made some third string community league. In case you're no really sports fans at all, community leagues don't have third leagues. But anyway. But I could have done that, right? And then I could have been like, but I'm enjoying it, man. I worked hard, and I did what I could, and I achieved, my dream. Crossed it off my bucket list. That wouldn't be a calling. But there's things in your life that you specifically, that when you look at it, you're like, I don't get it. It's just there. And you kind of see it, but you also ignore it. So one thing I know about a calling, you seem to be good at it, and you don't like it all the time. Kind of like that mom thing. Not all the time. And when I look in the mirror sometimes, I don't like what's in the box. Even if we're talking about the calling. It tells us in these two stories that, as Saul, in both stories, that the Spirit of God came powerfully upon each man. That's the gifting for it. And not only that, though. So they were called to it. They were gifted for it. I am trying to be a preacher here. I'm going to give you 3 things that kind of rhyme, because that's what we're told you have to do. Called to it, they're gifted for it. And others could see it. And this is where I want you to really clue in today. You're called to it. You're gifted for it. It's all there. All your pieces are there. All the parts are there. God has created you to do it, and He gave you the pieces to it. But really important, others see it. And I did an example of this 2 Wednesdays ago with Corey. Didn't even know I was doing this for this week. I looked at Corey, and I just said out loud on Wednesday night, Corey's gifting is for compassion for others in addictions. She already knew that. But that example is, you see it in other people. You know more about other people's callings than sometimes they do. That happens. That's normal. Because we're stuck looking in that mirror, looking in that box and going, I don't like what's in that box. I wanted something else. And others look at our lives and go, but you're tailor-made for it. But you've got everything it takes to do it. You are in the perfect place for it. You have the best options to achieve it. But I don't like it. Right? And our likes and our emotions and all that stuff starts to win over. But is that God honoring? And what happens if you take, in our room, 700 people? Mike is not, come on, work. But we all decide. We have a calling, we just don't like it. Yeah, I'll kind of do a little bit of it. I won't live fully up into what God has for me. I won't do all that. What starts to happen in our society? It starts to break down. It starts to have pieces and parts. The few weeks ago when we talked about this, we talked about body parts. The Bible says that everybody's a member, and everybody has a specific task, and everybody has specific duties. And if you're not doing that job, let's pretend you have an itch, and this is what does the scratching, and then all of a sudden this decides, not going to do that job no more. I don't like scratching. Well, the itch is still there. And what starts to happen? It starts to bug society. It starts to break down. We start to break down. The church starts to break down, right? Kingdom of God doesn't break down. Don't sell yourselves that big. But the church does start to break down. The family starts to break down. Your family starts to break down because if you're not going to live your calling, you're not doing a few of the things we're going to show here that everybody's supposed to be doing as a calling, but it starts to break down. Then your job starts to break down. Then your town starts to break down, your cities and our state. I mean, it just blows completely up when God's people do not follow their calling, the stuff they're called to, the stuff they're gifted for, and the stuff that others see. Why would a world follow a Savior when you won't? Even after you've said, I'm following. How silly does it make us sound to the world when we're like, no, I'm following God for the rest of my life. Like, He's number one. Except when He asked me to do this. Then that's not me. How bad does it make us sound? How good of a sales job is that? How good of a representation as best life ever? Eternity with Christ as I follow Him, and then not. You see, this is really important. This is not making you a better church member. This is making you a better follower, which in turn makes others want to follow Him. And that's key. That's core. We've said the kingdom inheritance here on the planet is the billions of people that God has sitting around you, waiting to be introduced to Him, waiting to be seen by Him, or seen in you. They're just waiting. And God specifically planted in each one of us, onto your lives, into your heads, into your hearts, things that you're supposed to be doing as a calling. Every single person has one. Everyone. You're not exempt. I met people that's like, I'm just glad I wasn't called to be a missionary. Fine, I got that. You don't like to travel. Good. And if you're not called to be a missionary, don't be one. Because you're going to be a horrible one. We've sent people on mission trips who were not called to go on mission trips. And they whine, they cry. Oh my gosh. You get back and they tell you how bad it is and how bad it was. You're like, oh, that was a great idea to take you. Thanks, Captain Obvious. But fine, you weren't called for that. Thankful I'm not a missionary. Awesome. What were you, though? It's not good enough to find out what you're not. That doesn't help anything. It helps a little bit. What are you called for? What are you called to? And I know I tease the over 60s, but I hate it when somebody says, I was called. I used to be. Well, how did you get to retire from that? I want to sign up for that retirement plan too. If I have to follow God for so many years, but then I get to, start cashing it back. I want that. No, I don't think that exists. He calls us and He stays with us. So the Spirit of God came powerfully upon it. It says people who passed by on Samuel the prophet could see it on both of them. He saw it. People that would pass by, people would pass by and they would see, and they actually looked at Saul as he was passing by and goes, what is Saul? Another prophet? I mean, it just came off of them. It was just like, man, I know God's with you. There's this one time when Saul's the king, and he's looking for somebody, and one of his servants comes and goes, hey, there's a dude. He plays really good music. He's always happy. And man, it's just like God's all over him. And he was talking about David. See, God's working ahead of everything. And you and I don't know it. And when we start talking to God about our callings and why we're not going to do it and why we're not going to do what we're told, what we're not understanding is that God's working in your life and my life, not just for our life, but for somebody's life a few years from now or tomorrow, or because you and I don't have tomorrow, He knows about tomorrow. See, so He needs you to do today to accomplish His tomorrows, not your tomorrows. Isn't that funny? He tells us not to worry about tomorrow, but He's working ahead of everybody because He knows how long the future is. You and I don't. So He wants you to focus in on today and respond to Him and your calling today, and it might actually have to do with a future that you don't even know about that He does. That's crazy. So don't think about the future, just think about the future. Don't think about the future, just think about today's and how it's going to impact the future. If there's a future. It's crazy, but it's the truth. I'm called. You're called. Saul, David were called, and people saw it. And they brought people in. So you've seen it. You see it you see it. You should know what your spouse's gift is. You should. I would at least think you do. Matter of fact, that's one of the exercises I want you to do today. On your way home, unless you're Marcia and Steve, and I think they rode bikes, this is going to be a hard conversation. Wait till you get home. Stop at the restaurant. Ask one another, what do you think my gift is? Or what do you think my call? Maybe we should just say the gifts. The calling part, that gets scary, doesn't it? I'm afraid I was always afraid to tell what my calling was, but I was like locking in for the rest of my life. I understand. Just ask what your gifts are. Just ask one another, what's my gift? Because you'll probably be surprised. I believe it. You'll go, and you think that's a gift? Yeah, I think it is. You can figure out what to do with it later, but ask your spouse. That's kind of part one. So I got ahead on the assignments, so if you want to write those down. Assignment number 1. Spouse, honey, what am I good at? You know how many times you spent telling your spouse what they're bad at? Oh, yeah, see, I knew I wasn't alone. There's a few out there. Only the guys were laughing. The girls are like, because we're all right. But to look in that mirror, for you to start looking in the mirror and seeing your gifts, seeing what God has done for you, taking the art of seeing it in someone else and then turning it onto yourself. That's step 2. Ask somebody and then look and see it. See that. See, Saul and David believed it. So maybe you're out, I don't really know what my callings are, what my gifts are. Let me give you a few generals. Here's some callings that are every single one of us, okay? No one is exempt. Everyone has these. I think I wrote down 3. There may be more. Here's one. If you've chosen to follow Christ, I'm not going to have you raise your hand, but if you've chosen, one of your first ones is to follow. So I chose to follow Christ. Now I need to follow Him. That's a calling, and you're gifted for it. See, when you're a lost person, you just have this desire for something. You don't really know what it is. And then God comes along and you choose it, and He's like, yep, that was the missing piece. Here it is. And He gifts you to follow Him. So you're called to be a Christ follower, and you have all the tools. The Bible says you have been given everything you need for salvation. Everything you need. And salvation means following Christ. So you're called and you're gifted to uniquely follow Him. He speaks to you. He talks to you. He's not going to ever ask you to do things you can't do. So you have everything just to follow Him, right? So to become more like Jesus, that's your calling. It's one of those. So off to your side after you said, I got to follow Jesus. Now, that's where those gaps can start to work. What part of my life am I not following? Where am I not following? Am I not following in my relationship with my spouse? Am I talking to my spouse in a bad way? Do I lash out? Do I blame? I'm just speaking really detail here, and just wouldn't it be better if we looked at ourselves and said, how can I be more Christ-like in this one important relationship? With my kids, how do I talk to my kids? My older kids, my younger kids. I had a family meeting this week. Sometimes I have to have family meetings. First question is always, well, who did what? Right? I don't even know why I'm telling you this, but I'm not even going to tell you because it doesn't matter. Follow. Change the way you have a relationship. That's why I was going to tell you. Okay, that works. So, I want this meeting. I bring them all together, and I'm like, look, living with adults is weird, and it's not natural. It's just not natural, right? How many of you, I'll ask you this, how many of you have adult children who live with you? Okay. How many of you are living with your parents? See, sometimes parents don't know. Different age bracket, I got it. But you're doing it, for whatever, and it's just not natural. It's not. It totally is not. It's crazy. And that's what I told them all. Listen, I don't want to, I'm working on how I'm communicating. Because I think it's better to have a better relationship with your kids and with your spouses if you communicate and you communicate wisely. So here, we're just going to talk as adults. It's not natural, but we're not natural. So it's probably going to work out. Right? And so we started a dialogue between adult children of like how we're going to have to run, how we're going to have to live. Right? Because mine have all gotten pregnant now. Not all of them. I don't think. I don't know. But the boys have gotten pregnant. Well, you know what I mean. They identify as a boy. They've all gotten pregnant, and they figured out they weren't quite equipped. Life sucks. I just gotta say, no. Anyway. But they did. They come out. Okay, so they're gonna regroup, right? So we're home base. That's cool. But I figured you got to be able to communicate this. You got to be able to spend time. So I think that's a better following of Christ if I can have a better relationship with my adult children. And that was just one aspect in the 2 weeks I'm working on this and thinking, I'm like, that is a good place for me. That is a bad gap because I'm more of the, you got to do this. Anybody ever try to tell a 20-year-old you got to do something? How stupid. On me. How stupid on me. Right? So that was just me. So maybe you can do that in your life. Maybe there's something you can apply there. Maybe that's why I told you. I don't know. But, so he stuck us here to be followers. Now, what else has he called us? Number 2, we have a calling as a follower, here it is, to love God and love others. Right? You're all called to that. And I'm sorry, we suck at this. You only love, and I only love, those who agree with me. Those who act like I think they should act. Right? I love God as long as He's giving me what I want. As long as things are going okay in my life. Right? I mean, don't look at me like that. I mean, am I the only one? That's sorry. Y'all preach. It's true though, right? You only love God, really love God, when things are cool. And you only love others when you're not on Facebook. Well, yeah, I love that guy. And then you get on, you see something, you're like, oh man, now I can't even like him. Whatever. But you're called to that. You're called to love God and love others, period. Just period. Period. Everyone. You're called to love them. I don't know what it looks like. I'm not saying you got to move in with all of them. Nothing. I'm saying you're called to love God and love others. And whatever that looks like in your life, you better make it look like that because that's your calling and you're gifted for it. I don't know how to love that person. Well, ask the guy that gave you the gift of how to love them. He's the guy that's got your answer. Because I know the answer is I don't have to. That's not the answer. Never you're going to give. God's going to give you, oh yeah, you know what? That group of people, you ain't got to love them. Don't worry about that. Never. He would have told us. Love others. He just blanket others. It's all. It's everybody. Love, just love. Not hippie, which some of y'all are pretty good at, but just take that and stick it on everybody. Just love others. Love God. Because you love God, you'll love others. That's a calling that you're gifted for. Newsflash, others see it. And they also see when you're not. So what happens when you've got a calling on your life that you're gifted for that others see that you don't do? In that area, nobody wants him. Nobody wants to follow God when Christians don't follow God. Why would they? You're supposed to have a better life. And it's all around these callings. Third thing you're asked to do. Not asked. Called to do. Make disciples. I don't even know what that looks like. I'm not going to lie to you. But there have been tons of books on it, so if you want to read what somebody else thinks you should do to make a disciple, read one of them. Or maybe talk to the guy who gave you the calling to make disciples, who gave you specific gifts to call in disciples, that others see in you where you can make disciples. Wouldn't that be novel? What happens when you're called to something that you're gifted for that others see that you don't do in this area? We don't have a cricket sound effect? That would have been great right there. Well, here you go. Disciples don't get made. That's what happens. Disciples don't get made. And for some reason, a lot of us don't care. Make disciples. I'm not really a good disciple myself. So I better not make any more disciples. What does disciples look like? What if? Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here, okay? Work with me. Give me the plank. Maybe I won't fall off the end. But maybe. What if? This is not, I know. Don't even write this down until you see if you agree with me, Inez. Just hold. What if we just followed God, loved Him and others, and then disciples got made because of it? Oh, no. I don't know. That's out there. I got it. I know. I'm going to get emails. You're a little too liberal for me. But what if we just did the first two and the third just kind of happened? Here's what happens. I don't come to somebody's house, or I don't meet them at the grocery store and give them some bull about a religious thing, or make them quote stuff and recite stuff and memorize rainbow colors or whatever it is. I don't make them do that sort of stuff. They just look at my life. They understand that I'm following Jesus. They look at me and they think that I love them because I actually do. And then they look back at me and go, man, I know you struggle in life, but for some reason, there's something about you. I see it. I want it. I don't know. Maybe I'll write a book about it. Christians seem to love to read books and do things after they've read the book, except for some odd reason, the one book. You know, that one book that God wrote a long time ago. It would have been awesome if He would have just took my ideas and did that. I kid. But what if? Look at what Paul said, Romans chapter 12, verse 6 to 8. Yeah. We're just going to read all of them. In His grace, God has given us different gifts for doing certain things well. Notice, there's only certain things you're going to do well. Those are the ones God gave you the parts for. So if God has given you the ability to prophesy, speak out as much faith as God has given you. Now we're getting a little more detail. We got our general things. We got our stuff. You're going to follow Jesus. You're going to love God and love others. And Jesus actually said that's the most important thing you could ever possibly do. You want to show people you love me. You want to keep my commandments. When he said keep my commandments, it was only those two. Love God with all your heart, your soul, your mind, and strength, and then love others as yourself. That's the two. Keep that. When you do that, people will know that you're my disciple. Yada, yada, yada. But then he goes, Paul says, but if your gift is serving, serve. Weird. If you're a teacher. If you're a teacher. Thank you. I am trying, Frank. Next one. Is he mad? Okay. He didn't say, I told you. I was very clear that I have to ask. If your gift is to encourage others, be encouraging. If it's giving, if God has given you leadership, take it seriously. And if you have a gift for showing kindness to others, woo! Yeah. What would happen if you actually did the stuff that God gave you the gifts for, that he called you to, that others see? Our world changes. And you quit whining. And we quit fussing at each other, and we quit doing all the things that churches and Christians and just normal people do. Because we're not normal. You see, not everybody on the planet has been given these gifts. The gift you have, there may be some other Christian who has it. Quite possibly. But not just every carte blanche human. You see, the gifts that God has given you come after. You'll remember a few weeks ago we called them the charisma gifts, the grace gifts. They come through grace. Those are different. You mean it's not my ability to do electricity well? Well, if you found God, and then all of a sudden, a light bulb went off. That was good, don't forget. I did that right on the fly. And you see it as a grace gift, a gift that was given through grace, that you received. Yeah, absolutely. Totally easy to define. God has gifted me with something, and now I can do that calling. See, it's just like you can't follow Jesus without accepting Jesus. You can't love God with all your heart and then love others as yourself until you follow Jesus. Those are grace gifts. You can't make a disciple until you've been made a disciple. So every bit of it is post-acceptance. That's my gift. That's my fun. So that's why I think some of us may have gotten stuck. We may have just grown up being really good at something. Maybe you were a really good quarterback, right? And you just lived your life as a quarterback. And you thought, since you're so good at quarterbacking, that must be God's calling. And you did it in reverse. What if we're wrong? Are you serious enough about this to ask that hard question? What if I was an electrician for 50 years and thought that was my calling, but realized my grace gift came after through grace, and now I'm supposed to determine what God actually called me to now? Are you courageous enough to ask that question? Are you courageous enough to go to your spouse and say, listen, I know what we've been doing. Hello? God called. You should always take that one. I agree. Well, what if you had to look at your spouse or your kids? Listen, this is, I think I now know what my calling is. And you had to make a change at some point and it's later in life or whatever. What if you're young? What if you're young and you think you've got the plan? You've got it mapped out because whatever reason you picked this plan, you're in it and you're flying in and you're just cruising along and you have to stop and go, this is actually what I want and not what God wants. Are you courageous enough today to do that? He does call back. God does call back. If you don't answer, He does call back. Right? I don't profess to that point. Are you mad? Okay. You didn't say. Am I being punked? Am I being punked? Is Ashton Kutcher in our bathroom? Look, I lost another culture. I said, is Ashton Kutcher? None of them. They're like, who's Ashton Kutcher? He was that guy that did some things. So you're going to go home. You're going to go home. Your assignments. You're going to ask. You're going to ask your spouse. That's number one. But then you're going to have some conversations through the week. Whether it be wherever your pickleball places. See, I got the group back. That's funny. That is crazy. So you're at pickleball. I want you to ask some of your people. Hey, they need to be Christian friends. Not gonna lie, this doesn't work for the world. They can't see your gifts. The world can't see your gifts. The world just sees what you're good at. They don't know if it's a gift or not. Only you know that. Ask your Christian friends. You're hanging out. And you're like, hey, what do you think my gifts are? What do you think my gifts are? And listen to it. Because you asked your spouse and you went to the mirror. Now you're asking your friends, go back to the mirror. Do you see it? Do you start to see it? Because at this point, if you're standing in front of the mirror and you're arguing with your spouse and you're arguing with your friends, you are an idiot. Stop it right then. Your spouse sees it, your friends see it, and you're the only one who can't seem to see it because you've already asked God and you already know it. You're just not seeing it, and you're not liking what's in the box. You're the problem. And it's okay. Don't beat yourself up. Change. What? Yes, that's pretty much the response you're going to have when you do it. What? And then go out and do it gladly. Go out and do it gladly. Oh, last. Okay. Oh my gosh, it's 11:52. That clock's way wrong. 51. It's 51, you're right. All right, last. All right, I'm going to tell you this because here's why. Because back to Saul and David. They did two drastically different things with their callings. Totally. And because of it, Saul isn't mentioned in the New Testament, not even one time. And David's mentioned over 60. And they were both kings. And they were both called to it. And they were both gifted for it. And others saw it. They just handled it differently. Check this. Here's what's funny. It's 1 Samuel chapter 10, verse 21 and 22. Here it is. So they're going to go, this is Samuel's going to go, Samuel's going to go and he's picking Saul, right? So Saul's already been called. He's been anointed. He's been gifted for it. God is coming. People see it. So Samuel goes to the town where God has told him. And guess what? It's Saul's town. And he goes and he finds the clan. They pick the clan. Guess whose clan it is? Saul's, right? It's weird. Hey, we already know the story, so you should be answering these questions. Then they pick the family of the clan. Guess whose family it is? But nobody else knows. Only Saul and Samuel know who's chosen at this point, right? And then they pick the person. And who'd they pick? They pick Saul. And when they looked for him, he wasn't even there. Where was he? Hiding in the baggage. What baggage? Baggage claim? Was it Delta? TSA at strike again? Yeah. Where is he? He's hiding among the baggage. All the baggage of all those clans. They had called everybody together and chosen clans and chosen families, and all those people had brought their bags with them. Here's this guy who's taught to be, or he's told to be, head and shoulders above everybody there. I mean, it would have been like all of you, and then there'd be a dude, like 4 feet, standing up. Everybody else sitting down. He's standing up. I mean, that was the difference. They describe it between this guy and everybody else. And where's he at? He's in the luggage. Now, you got to think it's humorous for at least a second or two to think, you've already been anointed, you've already been called, you've already been gifted, everybody already sees it, now everybody knows it, and you're laying in the duffel bags, hiding among the baggage. And it's really humorous until you figure out that when you're looking in the mirror and you can't see it, it's because you're hiding behind all your baggage. You're not going to achieve your calling in 2020 if you're hiding in your baggage of 2019 or 1980 or whatever your baggage drug you to. And when you look in there and you're like, I can't because X, Y, Z, whatever, that baggage, just remember, hello, God called you. He gifted you. Everybody knows it. Everybody sees it. What is your baggage? Insecurity? Knowledge? What? Well, I need to go and do this before I can. No, it's a gift. It's handed to you. It's presented to you. It comes upon you and you just don't, you got to see it. Are you in the baggage? Just hiding? Come on. So your busyness, are you too busy? Is that your baggage? Yeah, I know God rescued me from X, right? And I know I should be helping others, but work is I just can't, man. I got to provide for my family. Yeah, I know I'm supposed to be, but I've got to. Really? Does that look like is that what following God looks like? God, I know what you want, but I know what I got to do. I got another crazy one. Hold on. What if we stopped thinking we knew better than God about our lives? What if we actually said, I know what God's calling me to do, but I got it. What if I stopped saying, but I gotta, because if I don't, then this isn't going to happen. And I said, well, I know what I got to do. I just don't know how this other stuff's going to get done, and I'm going to let God take care of that. What if we did that? Cool. I believe it'd be cool. I believe God would actually take care of that stuff. I believe God would, since He miraculously gifted me, and I start doing what He wants me to do, He would take care of all that ancillary stuff that I think I've got to take care of. Well, how are you going to pay the rent? What if I honestly, didn't focus on paying the rent? And I just focused on following my calling, using the gifts I've been given that others already know I have, and God just took care of it. And it kind of happened. Right? Now, I'm not saying all of a sudden don't be checking your bank apps, waiting for the miracle. No, I'm talking about. I'm saying we move our focus off of it, and then it feels a little lighter. And we start to represent Him a little more. What if we stopped focusing? This is going to hit home for me. What if I stopped focusing on making my children like I want them to be, or like I think they should be? You shush. And I started following God, and I literally tell myself, God can handle that. Why don't I just let God do His work in them while He's doing His work in me? Well, but God called you to raise them. I said adult children. They done. They done. And I'm lowering the adult age. I literally am lowering the adult age in Gracie. Because if not, I'll kill her. No. But what if I was able to do that? And I was just able to say, you know what? I'm going to follow, and I'm going to let God take care of that stuff. God did not call you to live among the baggage. He called you to step out. Because there's a different way. And what did David do? The next time we see David mentioned, it's 1 Samuel 17, verse 26. David's getting sent to the battle lines to take lunch, right? He's already been anointed. He's sent to the battle lines to take lunch, right? And where's everybody else at? Whining and crying about the darn Philistines. Well, these guys are out there, and there's a big guy out there, and we don't know what we're going to do about him, and we're scared. We don't want to go out into that world. Those world people are mean. I don't agree with anything those world people are doing. David walks up and goes, "The heck is wrong with you people? Don't you know?" Maybe that's not what he said. Let's see what he said. David asked the same story. What will a man get for killing the Philistines and ending his defiance of Israel? Who is this pagan Philistine anyway? Why is it that you and I are looking at the world like they're running the show? Why are you looking at them whining about how they're being? They're not in charge. God's in charge. And He called you to do some things and gifted you with stuff to do that everybody already knows anyway. Who is this pagan anyway? He's allowed to defy the armies of the living God. Give me a rock. Right? Is that right? He's a shepherd. Where'd the grace gift of slingshot accuracy come from? Anybody? Anybody? Thank you. No, I'm sure he stood and he practiced. Listen, I was told in Sunday school, David should have had a slingshot, I'm sure, when he was growing up, and he had targets set up, and he probably every afternoon was out there just all fling, 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 just getting better because you got to practice, you got to practice, you got to practice. No, you just got to show up and be willing and let God give you the stuff you're supposed to do to finish it, because without it, you're going to be the one taking the credit. Because you're called to it, you're gifted for it, and everybody already sees it, so all you got to do is show up and do it. Who is this guy? Who do they think they are? Assignment number 3. Look in the mirror and go, who do you think you are, defying what God has called you to do? Call yourself out. That's your last assignment. Call yourself out. Be honest. Who do you think you are? Now, I know my dad told you last week that he doesn't have a therapist. Didn't think I was listening, did you? He needs one. Y'all need one. We all need one. Huh? He don't have pretty feet. Call yourself out. I'll tell you right now. I do know my calling. I have always been reluctant to admit it because I don't like it. Now, I did tell you many times, many years ago, give me a choice, I ain't doing this. Not the actual preaching part. I honestly love preaching, and I do that. Pastoring. Working with you people. I don't mean specifically in this room. I mean other church people. Listen, if I was Moses, I'd have probably rolled a rock over all of them. I ain't lying. I'd have said, God, come on. Let's just go rescue somebody else. Anyway, I'd do something different. And I honestly look in the mirror. I have to call myself out. Who are you to think you're going to try to do something different? Who are you to think that you're going to defy what God has called you to do? Who are you? Because those thoughts come into my head. I know where they come from. That's Satan. 3 of you. Yeah, those feelings. Huh? What? No, she's the one helping me. No, she helps me. She helps me. She helps me. Because I will get that. I'll get that going. Come on, this is enough. Let's do something else. Come on. Are you kidding me? You know, I get an email. I get something. And someone is telling me. And I take it in. And I listen to them. And they're not telling me about my calling. They're not telling me what they see in me. They're telling me what they want to see in me. And then I look in the mirror and I'm like, oh, you're right. It's there. It's there. And I focus in on that gap. Who am I? Who are you to defy what God has called you to do? No, you're not going to like it all the time. But you see it when you start to believe it. So try it. Once you leave today, talk to your spouses, talk to your friends, and talk to yourself. It's okay if you don't do it in that reverse order. If you start talking to yourself right off the bat, that's weird. But answer those questions. God's called you. He's gifted you. Others already see it. Ask them. And then turn away from that mirror. Put your nose to the grindstone and get busy. No, she's making coffee. She's making coffee. I know where she's going. Yeah. That's a girl who knows where her calling's at. That's right. And where my calling is right this moment. Can you? Will you? Do you have the courage? Don't say yes, because right now you're just in church and you're feeling really cool. Do you honestly have the courage, if you have to make some changes in your life, to become that follower? To love others and love God as yourself. To love God and then love others as yourself. To therefore make disciples. And then specifically do what God has asked you to do. Do you have the courage? If you don't, shame on you. I'm just going to say it. Shame on you. Because there's stuff out there that's not getting done because you're not doing it. That's all there is to it. That's all there is to it. And you're not experiencing everything you need and want from God. And that's probably more important. Let's stand and go. I apologize, I went long. I do not need to hear how long church should be. Don't worry, some of y'all were thinking you should tell me. We're going to pray together. We'll see you back Wednesday night, 5:30 for Family Fellowship Meal. Who's cooking this week? Church. I know where. Who is cooking? Oh, Randy's cooking. Is it shrimp? We're eating up here tonight. So Wednesday, this next Wednesday, and then Wednesday after that, we're here in this building, that back room, and all across the back for Family Fellowship Meal. And then we'll meet in this room for Bible study at 6:15. So come out and enjoy that. That's awesome. It's a great time. We have a good time on Wednesday nights, and it's great fellowship. So come and do that. Some other things that are going on. If you're in the bathroom remodel project, which I think I've already talked to you, we're going to meet. We're going to have a meeting in the bathroom for like 1.5 minutes. I'll meet you over there. If you want to help this week in a little bathroom remodel project, it's quick and easy. I crack myself up. No, it really is. That back corner through that door, if you want to help, we could use 1 or 2 more guys maybe. So come check that out as soon as we're done here. Anybody else? Did I miss anything? I'm glad you all are here today. I love doing church with you all. I do. I love doing life with you all more. I really do. Even when I don't like you. Like my kids. Even when we don't like each other. We know what God has called us to do. And I'm nose to the grindstone. We got a 2020 to take by the ears, shake the living daylights out of, and say, we're here and we mean business. And we're going to be what God called us to be. Can we? Yeah. All right. Last New York Steve to get here. Would you pray for us?